Chapter 18. Su Fengnian made a pig's face, which made his sister laugh. He laughed and said, "Sister, I'm not a child anymore." Su Jihu hugged Su Fengnian and pressed his head against her chest, which all Gangnam-do men coveted. She snorted and said, "Even if you're not a child, you can still sleep with me. Don't even think about running away tonight." Su Fengnian said shyly without any sincerity, "Sister, that's offensive." Su Jihu twisted her brother's ear and threatened, "Do you believe that I won't tell everyone about your heroic deeds of wetting the bed when you were 8 years old? Also, you were lying on the same bed as me when you were 12 years old. Every time you woke up in the morning, your hand would be on me." Su Fengnian glanced at his sister's chest from the corner of his eyes. He wanted nothing more than to dig a hole and crawl into it. He said flatteringly, "Sister, let's not kill each other, okay? Come, let me massage your shoulders." Su Jihu, who was enjoying His Royal Highness's skillful massage, squinted her eyes and looked at the lake. She sighed and said, "When you came back, Huang Mana left. I don't know if it's because I left, but that girl came. The four of us never had a reunion." Su Fengnian asked, "Sister, when it snows, do you want to go to Wudong Mountain and enjoy the scenery?" Su Jihu smiled and said, "Since that heartless coward asked for the heavenly Tao, I'll just let him be alone for the rest of his life. I'm not so shameless as to beg him. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten that there was such a person." Su Fengnian said, "Oh, and didn't touch on the pot that didn't boil." Su Jihu fiercely kissed Su Fengnian's face and sweetly said, "Elder sister is narrow-minded and has a narrow vision. Therefore, as long as younger brother is around, all men in the world are vulgar things that cannot be seen." Su Fengnian pretended to be sad and said, "It's a pity that we're siblings." Su Jihu twisted his ear and scolded him, "Stupid." When a woman got married, it was like spilled water. There was heavy snow during the heavy snowfall. No matter how reluctant she was to leave, half a day of reunion passed by in a flash. Her sister, Su Jihu, finally decided to return to Gangnam-do. She said that it was snowing and that she would not be able to bear to leave if she did not leave now. That day, Su Fengnian sent him off for 30 li on horseback, and then rode alone back to the city. Returning to the Wang Fu, Su Fengnian, who was in a bad mood, called his maidservant Jiang Ni and concubine Yu Wei to the lakeside pavilion to admire the snow. The surface of the lake had long been frozen, but heavy snowflakes continued to pour down, covering the vast expanse of white land. Su Fengnian shook his head, stood up, and drank a mouthful of warm wine to warm his stomach. He muttered something that no one understood. "Old Lake Kuei, don't freeze to death at the bottom." Su Fengnian turned to look at the tide-listening pavilion across the lake. White Fox's face had not shown up for a long time. Inside, she was reading the vast martial arts scroll. Was she well? Finally, he looked in the direction of Mount Wudong. Su Fengnian did not understand those martial artists who spent their whole lives pursuing the great realm of martial arts. As for those lunatics who pursued the illusory and supreme way of the heavens, he did not understand at all. He only knew that if that young Taoist who rode the green ox was willing to nod his head, his sister would be happy. Therefore, Su Fengnian did not have the slightest good impression of Mount Wudong, which had been passed down for thousands of years. His sister was narrow-minded, but he was narrow-minded. Su Fengnian poured a cup of warm wine for Jiang Ni and handed it to her. She responded with a sneer. It was true that she was the princess of a fallen country, and her master even said that she was the favored one who carried the world's fortune. However, in Bailiang Palace, she was only a female servant. She had to follow the rules for food, clothing, housing, and transportation. Therefore, she shivered in her thin clothes and glanced at the fog of wine several times. Su Fengnian mocked, "You want to drink wine, but you don't want the one I gave you. You can't take it yourself either. You and I are both tired. I'm just a good-for-nothing prodigal. If you have the ability, go assassinate His Majesty the Emperor or my father. What kind of hero are you to make life difficult for me?" Jiang Ni said coldly, "I'm just a weak woman. I only have a handful of divine talismans. I can only kill you. If I don't kill you, who else can I kill?" Su Fengnian was speechless. He drank a mouthful of wine and curled his lips. "Scoundrel. We're a good match." Jiang Ni simply closed her eyes to rest. Yu Wei, who was holding Wu Mainyang in her arms, was very curious about the identity of this beautiful female servant. A white rainbow flew out of the pavilion. It landed in the lake not far from the tide-listening pavilion. For the first time, the white-robed white fox's face pulled out the embroidered winter, spring, and thunder blades at the same time. The embroidered winter blade was 3 feet and 2 inches long and weighed 5 kilograms. The person who made the blade did not seek sharpness. On the contrary, he sought to blunt the blade. The spring thunder blade was 2 feet and 4 inches long and weighed only 1 kilogram and 3 kilograms. Its entire body was bluish-purple. It could easily cut through heavy armor. The embroidered winter blade rolled up 1,000 layers of snow. It was as if the heavy snow in the world was moving like a shadow, slanting toward the white-robed person who was moving swiftly on the lake. It was majestic and magnificent. The spring thunder blade was cold. The ice on the lake's surface split into nearly 100 astonishingly huge grooves. The wind and snow were confusing to the eyes. Su Fengnian, who had just picked up a cucumber and was gnawing on it, froze. He stared at the person and the 2 blades in the lake as if he was looking at an immortal. Gnawing on raw cucumbers and corn was a habit he had developed after traveling back and forth for 6,000 miles. To cater to His Royal Highness's tricky taste, he had prepared many raw cucumbers that were washed but not peeled. There were also some sweet corn. It was not a small expense to play with these things in this season. Jiang and I murmured, "What a beautiful woman!" Compared to the female servant who had no lethality except for a divine talisman, Yu Wei, who had roughly learned the sword and had stayed in Shangyin Academy for some years, had better eyesight. The handsome person who was moving with the blade in the lake was definitely the most outstanding bladesman. The scenery in front of her was not inferior to the sword dance she saw when she was young. The white shadow moved forward in the snow. The 2 blades were incomparably powerful. Su Fengnian took a bite of the cucumber and said cheerfully, "This is the demeanor of a grandmaster." The wind and snow in the lake suddenly stopped. A resheathed short blade was thrown out. It drew a mysterious arc and stabbed into the snow in front of Su Fengnian. This year, during the heavy snow season, White Fox abandoned a spring thunder and went up to the 2nd floor.